A defiant Dr. Anthony Fauci brushing off the conclusions by the FBI and Energy Department that COVID likely leaked from a lab in Wuhan, China.
Do you think we'll ever know how the pandemic originated?
Might not. It very well might not. We may not ever know. That's unfortunate, but that's the possibility that we might not ever know.
Joe Concha is a Fox News contributor, and he joins us now. So he's just going to keep denying it, Joe. Even Christopher Wray came on our network last night and had this to say.
Okay.
The FBI has for quite some time now assessed that the origins of the pandemic are most likely a potential lab incident in Wuhan. Here, you're talking about a potential leak from a Chinese government-controlled lab that killed millions of Americans.
Your reaction to all of that, Fauci and Christopher Wray?
Ashley, it was so fitting that Fauci did that interview on Zoom, right? So he's in one place, somebody else is doing the interview from home. I felt like I was back in May of 2020, right? So it's so fitting given the optics. And look, Dr. Fauci likely has known this for some time, but dismissed it because NIH funding for the Wuhan lab was something that he obviously supported, advocated, was behind. And the turning point for some, at least for me anyway, with Dr. Fauci, who was a strong advocate of lockdowns and masking. Remember when he attended the first Major League Baseball game played in 2020? I think it was July of that year, Yankees, Nationals in Washington. And there's this infamous photo of him with two other people in the stands, literally the only three people in the stands, smiling, laughing, and not wearing a mask. And when he was confronted on it, he didn't just admit that, oh, I should have done that. It's a bad example to set. He actually said, you know what? I was just taking a sip of water. That's very misleading. And most Americans looked at this and said, come on. I mean, you're not going to be one of those leaders that are hypocrites, too. And then we saw it happen over and over again. Look, the bottom line is that most Americans looked at this and said, of course, this virus that the world has never seen came from a lab. It happened in Wuhan. That's the home of the Wuhan Institute of Virology, the one that, studies bat coronaviruses through gain of function that happens to be located in Wuhan that created this. And SARS escaped, remember, at least 3 times from labs studying this sort of stuff in China before. So there is a precedent here. And we know that several workers from that Wuhan lab got sick in November of 2019 at the onset of the pandemic and had to go to the hospital with COVID symptoms. Yet we still have some in the media and late night comedians like Stephen Colbert who continue to insist that, no, it couldn't have come from a lab. It had to have come from a bat in a wet market. And now we just know that that isn't true based in basic logic.
Yeah, if not now, in the face of all of this evidence, Fauci is never going to admit that he's wrong. And that's sad for our country. Finally, Joe, I want to get your thoughts on this. The Supreme Court hearing arguments on Joe Biden's $400 billion student loan bailout. But here's how the head of the second largest teachers union feels about it.
All right.
This is what really pisses me off. During the pandemic, we understood that small businesses were hurting, and we helped them, and it didn't go to the Supreme Court to challenge it. Big businesses were hurting, and we helped them, and it didn't go to the Supreme Court to challenge it. All of a sudden, when it's about our students, they challenge it.
I mean, that's rich, Joe. Randi saying she's fighting for the students. Seems like she took 2 years where she didn't do that. What's your reaction to that spectacle we just saw?
Oh, as a parent? Well, let's put it this way. Mike Pompeo said not too long ago that Randi Weingarten was the most dangerous person in the world. And I thought, in the world, that's a bit strong, right? I mean, we got Vladimir Putin, Kim Jong-un, Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. I mean, those are dangerous people. But most dangerous in the country? I mean, as a parent who saw my young kids in completely ineffective remote learning on iPads, and being in masks for months, many months after the data and the science said schools were safe. Randi Weingarten at least is in the top 4 seeds in my bracket as far as dangerous people in the country. And let's put aside the fact that she sounds like a hybrid of Howard Dean meets Rashida Tlaib outside the Supreme Court, right? I mean, Red Bull, Pixie Sticks, just completely insane. Student loan forgiveness, which is what she was arguing about, is a complete sham. It's an effort to buy votes because nearly 50% of the loans, they go to pursuing graduate degrees. You know, the people that become doctors and lawyers, the type of people who could afford to pay their loan back. I mean, my wife is a doctor. She spent more than 10 years paying off her medical school loans, and her retroactive check, I have a feeling, is not coming. So student loan forgiveness, it's only going to drive up tuition costs longer. It's only a temporary solution for people, many people who don't need it. And it makes college an option for those who only are in the upper middle class or upper class while pricing out everybody else. So take a bow, Randi Weingarten. You're doing a heck of a job.
When you don't have the facts of the law, you scream. Joe Concha, thank you very much for your time as always, friend.
I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.